Hey, welcome back. This is episode 2 of my series on creating a generative application. We are working on my SOW agent, and we are going to start here by creating our master agent. So, the way that I have this set up, if you remember from before, we're going to have a master agent and we're going to call other agents to do tasks for us. So, in this one, what I have done, I have enabled orchestration. So generative AI is going to move things around for me. I have some knowledge that I added. This is going to be an Azure AI search index that has our former SOWs in it. And I'll go over how I created this in another video. For right now, we're just looking at the very first part of what we're looking to do. Now, the idea of this particular agent is that you are going to enter it wanting to create an SOW. You're not going to ask it anything. It's not going to talk to you. It's just we're going to go in and actually create an SOW agent. Now, if you want to do that, so I want to ask a question right away and start off right away. What I need to do is the first thing I want to look at is in the topics, and I'm going to go into system and I'm going to go into conversation start. And this is where I am going to really do what is going to happen here. So what is going to happen in the beginning? This is my beginning behavior. So again, you have your standard message that talks about, "Hi, I'm this bot, I'm AI, blah 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 blah." But after that, I ask a question, and my question is, do you have a team with recordings and documents? Because I want to know, first of all, if they have this recording, these documents. If they do, I want the user to go and select them so that I can then ingest them to create my scope. If I don't, I want to go to somewhere else in order to do an interview. I want to interview this person to get the functional requirements and that kind of thing out of them. And that will be done by another agent. Okay. So in this case, right here, I have my condition. So if the condition is equal to true, this is my Boolean here. So if it's true, I am going to redirect, and I'm going to redirect into has a team, get team values. Now, the hard part about this is that I don't know what information I'm going to ground this on. I don't know what information I'm going to ingest. So I have to be able to go out and ask the user some questions to be able to get the information so I can list out what files they're accessing. So that actually is a little bit more involved than it sounds. So we're going to go to this topic. And this is where we start. So the triggers it's redirected to. So the only way I can get here is by being redirected here. And then I put in a message here. This has a team get values. And what that does is tells me where I'm at. So I know that if I see this message, it's in this topic. Now, before this goes to production, I'll obviously delete this. The next thing I do is I'm going to list out all the teams. And this is a connector that is using a connection based upon the logged in user. And the reason we do that is because we want the teams that the user has access to. I don't want to put anything in here that the user might not have access to, because that's just going to lead us to security issues later on. So what I do is I grab a list of all these teams. The next thing I do is I ask a question. What is my team's name? And this is an open question that I use the entire response for, and I'm going to save that as a string variable. What I do then is I create a variable here, and I want the ID of the team. Now, how I do this is I have a formula that I want to work with here, and the formula is just this. I want the first record because I should only get one, and I'm going to filter based upon my get names value. My get all teams value is a listing of the teams. That's what comes back to me. And I want my display name equal to topic.stir team name. That's what I'm looking for. I want the team that matches my team name. And I'm grabbing the first one. So that's going to output then the team ID. All right. And there's the ID. So I'm getting the ID and I'm saving that there. What I do next is I'm going to do a check. And my check is if it came back with nothing, I want to say, hey, that team's not valid. Did you spell it right, or you don't have permission? What's going on here? And then I redirect this back to my initial question so that they can try again. All right. Now, if they don't have something in here, if they don't know their team name, or the team name, they can't spell it right or whatever, this is going to be kind of an infinite loop for them. But they need, if they can always refresh or just close the window. In this case, if the team name is valid, I get an ID back, then I'm going to look up the channels. Now, in this example right now, I'm not going to support private channels, and you'll see why here in just a second. So here's my list channels. Again, this is a Microsoft connector, a Teams connector. And what I need to do here, the idea here is I don't want to give anything that they don't have access to. So if there are any private channels or anything like that they're not a member of, this is not going to pull it back for them. All right. So again, this is a channel it uses in the context of the logged on user. We use this. So the properties here are the string here is going to be the team ID. And the team ID then is passed to this, and the output is going to be a listing of the groups. So then what I do is I need to put this in some form that I can use. So what I do here is I'm going to loop through a list. And how I get to this area right here is I'm going to go into the variable management, list management, and I can modify a list. I can loop through it. I can skip. I can end the loop. I can do everything here. So in this case, this is loop through a list. So that's what I've got here, and I'm looping through. And then what I'm doing is I'm modifying items in a list. So again, that is this one here. So go into list management, and I got to modify a list. And my change type is I'm going to add an item. Now, the way I add this is in JSON format, because what I'm going to display this in is an adaptive card. And it's a very simple adaptive card. For the choice values, I need a couple of things. I need a title and a value. The title, of course, is going to be the display name of the team, and then the value is going to be the ID of the team. So really what I need here is the value. So the idea there is that after this is populated, I go into my adaptive card. And if we take a look at the properties of my adaptive card, you can see here I have a formula for the adaptive card. And again, extremely simple adaptive card. And I've given it an ID, and that comes out as the output. And then my choices are my topics table, my all team channels table. And it isn't a table. It has to be in this kind of table format with the value and title elements. So that's what the adaptive card can read. Okay, so that's what happens there. And I get two outputs. I get the submit ID, and I get the selected team. Selected team is going to be the ID of the channel. I know I have to change my variable name. I get it. I understand. And then I make sure that I know what's going on. So I come out and I say, hey, stir team name is my ID, and I have this stuff. So I've got a name and the team ID, and then I have the selected team ID. So I know that, or the selected channel ID. So I know what I'm getting. All right. So that is going to be the first part of this. After that, I need to do something. I need to go and find the listing of the files within that channel. Now, a channel is nothing more than a folder inside of a SharePoint document library. And the issue is going to be that people always put folders inside their channel files. So my idea here is I have to recursively look into all these folders so that I can pull out just the files and then I'll have my user select the files. And again, I select the files the same way. I'm doing it in an adaptive card that is almost exactly the same as my other adaptive card, right? Almost exactly the same, except my topic now is channel file listing rather than the channels. Okay. Now, how I get that is I have to do quite a bit of work in order to find the files in a SharePoint site. So this is what that looks like. I have a tool that calls a agent flow, and the agent flow looks like this. It might look like this. Here we go. So here's my agent flow. Let this load. We'll go to designer. And you'll see a number of different kind of things here. So first of all, I have when the agent calls the flow, and I'm going to pass a few pieces of information. I'm going to pass the team name, I'm going to pass the channel name, the team ID, and the channel ID. So I have all this information, and I'm going to find this. Now, I am going to be making some calls to the Graph API. I didn't want to create a custom connector to the Graph API, so I'm just using the regular HTTP call. All right. So the first thing I need to do is I need to grab a token from Entra ID. And how I do that is I've got this. This is my tenant ID. Haha, I've got it blurred. You can't see it. And I go to OAuth v2 token. That is the endpoint. All right. And then I have my client ID and a client secret here. All right. Again, I've blurred it out so you can't use it. But this corresponds to an ID in Azure Azure Active Directory. It's now Entra ID. It's an Entra ID application, and I have added some API rights to that, so I can look at files and can look at sites. All right. So that is what I get, and my return out of this is going to be my access token. My access token comes from just the return of this access token. That's what it looks like. All right. Now, once I have the access token, I can then go ahead and get the team URL. And how I get the team URL is I go into the Graph API, into the groups, and I pass it the team ID, sites, root. Okay, I'm passing the bearer. So I have a bearer here, and there's the access token. So this is access token outputs, right? And I'm just looking for the get of this. The output of that is I'm looking for a property called web URL. And that gives me the URL, the SharePoint URL of my team. The next thing I want to do is I'm going in and I'm finding the channel URL. So I want to know what channel this is. So I can't just use the channel name because it may be something different inside of what the folder or the actual URL to the channel is. So for this, I call the Graph API and I look for the team ID into channels, channel ID, and I use the files folder request. Again, this is a get and I'm passing my bearer. Everything else is empty. So what I get out of this is I get the ability to then go in and get the URL. How I get the URL or the path to that channel is that I am looking for the channel URL, web URL, and then the team URL right here. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm doing a replace. So what I want is I'm just getting the relative path to this team URL. Okay, to the relative path to the folder that I'm looking for. All right, and that's going to be the channel folder. Once I have the channel folder, now I can put the web URL, you can see here, web URL, into the site address of my SharePoint property. Now, again, I want to do this because I want my SharePoint property to only get the stuff that the user is allowed to get. The library name is always going to be documents for teams, And then finally, I am looking for this folder. Now, the folder is going to be the output of what I have here. Okay. Once I do that, now one thing that you do need to take a look at here is the include nested items property. This allows me to go ahead and recursively look into all the folders that are underneath this base folder, this channel folder, and pull their files. All right. This is super handy because otherwise I would have had to loop through this thing in order to go into each folder and make this recursive in and of itself. So Microsoft handles that for you, which is really, really nice. What I do once I have that listing, I'm going to prepare that for my adaptive card. So I have a condition here, and what I do is I apply it to each, and my condition is that if the is folder is equal to false. So I don't want the folders, I just want the files. All right. So if it's equal to false, that means it's a file. And then I am going to append my string value. So I've got a variable named file listing. And again, you see I'm appending that with the file name with extension. So that's the file name and the .exe or .pdf or whatever. And then the full path to that item. That's the relative path to that actual file. Okay. So, and you can see this is title and value. So it's all set up with a comma, and it's all set up to be used by my adaptive card. Now, one thing I didn't show is that when I initialize this file listing variable, you can see I start it with this, right? And so that's the square bracket that I need in order to create a table in Copilot Studio. So we're kind of preparing it for that. And then this append to string, that just adds on to the last one. So the problem we're going to have with this at the end is that I am not going to have a square bracket and I'm going to have a comma. But luckily, so when I'm all done, I go through all this stuff, and I go through each one, and I put in the files. So now I have a listing of the files in my string. I'm going to use the substring command here. So again, here's my variable file listing. I'm using this substring here. I'm saying start at 0 and then go to the length at -1, right? And that is going to remove that. So I can go ahead and get a substring then without the trailing comma. And then what I do here is in this compose action, I put the square bracket on. So I trim the comma, I put the square bracket on, and then I respond to my agent as channel file listing with that output. Okay. So now we've gotten the team, we've gotten the channel, and now we have a file listing. All right. So we'll go ahead and go back, and we're going to go into here, into my master agent, and we'll go into our topics and back into our get team values. Okay. So now from here, I'm going to ask the user to select their files. So we'll go down here, and I have another adaptive card. Now, like you saw before, the adaptive card is extremely simple. It's just a drop and a submit, and I ask it here. So I've got a message here that says, hey, I'm getting a file list. And then I say, select the files that you wish to process. And then I'm just outputting then what those files are. All right. All that said, let's go ahead and give it a test. So do I have team recordings with documents? Okay, and I'm going to say for this one, I'm going to say, yes, I do have a team. Okay, I'm processing. So it's going to think for a little bit. And now you can see that at has a team, get team values. So that message hit, and now I've got a team listing. So if we go in here to variables, we can kind of follow this. If I go into test now, my get all teams, you can see I have value here. So I've got 373 teams that I am a member of. All right. So we're going to get one of these teams, and I'm going to say it is going to be Spark Hound internal. Okay. I'm going to say go. Now, what that is going to do then, it's going to go and pass it in here, right? And now we've got this that says valid team name. It's going to look up my channels. And that'll take just a second for it to go ahead and do that. And it will populate it within my adaptive card. So I'm going to go down here and I am going to say L10 collab, or let's just do support billing 2020 right here. And I click submit. Now what that will do is it tells me what my stuff is and what my channel is. It goes into my flow, and you can see it's come back here with these other connections. Okay, so I can select these four files. I click submit, right? And that then is going to output the path. So you see that I have the path now of my files. Because I have the path now of the files, I can now send this over to my agent that is going to do the analysis of these files. So I have the SharePoint path, and I can then attach them into either Copilot Studio or to Azure AI. We will cross that technical bridge when we come to it in the next video.